Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Eric with SweetSpotDFS, and welcome to my DFS preview show for the 2022 Sony Open. I'm going to cover everything you need to know prior to building your DFS lineups this week, which will include looking at course information, tournament information, past optimal lineups, and the bucket system, which is my way of analyzing the top 10 for this tournament dating back to 2013. We're looking at all of the lead-in stats for all those top 10 golfers and trying to figure out which stats happen more frequently than others. So if you want to see all those items, or you want to see the timestamps for all those items, you can find them in the description below, or you can hover over the progress bar and see them there. But I want to start this with a couple giveaways. The first one being a subscriber giveaway, which requires you guys to be subscribed, as well as comment down below. And a topic you guys can use, because I think you're going to need to have one of these golfers in it. Give me your favorite 10K golfer. And that's it. You'll get a free entry into the giveaway. And if we hit the goal of 275 subscribers, I'll run it. And one of you lucky people out there will win 10 bucks. I know it's not much, but it's my way to reward you guys for participating and supporting the channel. Now, following that same criteria, you can also, if you want, win the optimizer that I'll be showcasing in tomorrow's strategy video. I won't have it ready until like Tuesday night, so somewhere around 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But you'll have the opportunity to use that as well. Got to be subscribed, comment below, again, favorite 10K golfer, and then reach out to me at sweetspotdfs@gmail.com. And I'll send it your way. Just tell me you're interested in it, and that's all you got to do. Now, the third giveaway that I do is a prize picks giveaway, which if you haven't signed up yet, I will provide a link in the description below. Use that to get to the website. It will automatically populate the Sweet Spot promo code in there. If you sign up using that and you put 20 bucks in your account, you'll get automatically entered into my giveaway for $20. So basically, you're going to be playing prize picks for free. And the best thing about this giveaway is your entry will never be lost. Until you win, your name is always going to be in the giveaway. So you can look at it this way. You're always going to, no matter what, you're going to win 20 bucks. And if you only put $20 in, you're playing prize picks for free. And there's one more bonus to it. Prize picks is going to match your deposit. So if you put 20 bucks in, you're going to have $40 to your account. And you're not going to have to spend a dime. Well, you will initially, but I will refund you basically. So that's the last giveaway that I have. Super simple. I highly encourage you guys to do so. But let's go ahead. Let's get into this. We're going to start with the tournament information. Sony Open in Hawaii. This tournament's been playing since 1965. I believe it's also been it has been played at the Waialae Country Club ever since then as well. So the architect is Seth Rayner. The only other golf course on the PGA Tour that he's done is the Old White TPC, which the Greenbrier tournament hosts, or that golf course hosted that tournament. So those are the only two courses. Those are the only two tournaments through the Greenbrier and the Sony that you can use for research. Those can be your data points. I think there's about 11 separate instances or 11 records that you could use, or I should say 11 different tournaments between all the Sony Opens and the Waialaes dating back to 2013. Not the Waialaes, I'm sorry, the Sony Open and the Greenbriers. Jeez. I don't know how I feel about using those data points because I don't know the profile of Seth Rayner whatsoever. If you guys can make a connection, then obviously use those data points, but I think you could probably just skip it. Now, the field size of this tournament is 144 players. It's worth noting that currently the only active players in DraftKings, or the amount of active players in DraftKings, is about 136 currently, because 4 golfers from their initial roster have already withdrawn. And in fact, 8 golfers have already withdrawn. I don't know if there's going to be more. I really don't know what the reason is for all the withdrawals. But keep an eye out for that. And if you have any dummy lineups you've already created, I think like Lucas Herbert, Bryson DeChambeau, I can't think of the other 2 off the top of my head, but make sure those guys aren't in your dummy lineups and make sure you don't play any of those golfers when submitting your contest, or before lineup lock on Thursday. Which also reminds me, since this is being played in Hawaii, you can wake up Thursday morning and still tinker with your lineup, because I don't think lineup lock is going to go until like 10 a.m. It's probably going to be like around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be something like that. So keep an eye out. No, it won't. I think it's like 6 hours behind us. So 7 o'clock, 1. It'll be like 1 or 2 Eastern Standard Time. Again, keep an eye out for that. Now, the cut is a normal cut, top 65 in ties. Your average winning score is -20, and your average cut score is -2. In 2019, I think, when Cameron Smith won this, he won it at 11 under par. That is the highest score. Remember, golf is inverse, so high is bad, low is really good. It is your highest score you've seen here since 2013. And if you remove that from the numbers, your average winning score just barely bumps up. It's like 21 under, and your average cut score is closer to -3. So I think when you look at the weather forecast, which I have right up there as well, 79 degrees on Thursday, 80 on Friday, with very little wind both days, I think your average cut score is going to probably be, or the cut score is going to be probably -4. Average winning score, I think we'll probably see somewhere between 20 and 20. Well, I should say this. I think it's going to be like between 23 and 27 under. I think the golfers can go pretty low this week. This isn't going to play similar to the Tournament Champions last week, because we don't really have a lot of rain that happened prior to, like we did at the Tournament of Champions. Plus, that was ball in hand. So it was just set up for very, very optimal scoring conditions. This golf course usually plays a little bit firmer than the previous tournament. I can't even think of the golf course. Kapalua Plantation Course. It's going to play a little firmer than that. So be understanding of that. The strength of field this week is 286. That's like in the lowest tier of tournaments. I think the Palmetto last year of non-alternate events, because it technically wasn't an alternate event, it just replaced another one. Whereas like your Corrales Punta Cana or your Puerto Rico Open, that kind of stuff is an alternate event to another major event that's happening, WGC or major championship. Palmetto last year was 198. That was like the lowest regular tour event. And I don't know, again, if withdrawals happen more frequently or with more players, that strength of field might go down even further. So keep an eye out for that. It's a data point you can use. And I actually would. Anything less than 300, you probably get a good idea. Because in these types of fields, you're going to get kind of your older veterans that are looking to get some easy FedEx Cup points, kind of pressing their luck to see how well they can do. Because obviously a top 10 finish for them goes a very, very long way. And then your young kids probably just going to play, golf as most young golfers do, which is everything aggressive. So that's why I also think the winning score is going to be pretty low, because I think we're going to have some young guys going to shoot really well, some old guys also going to shoot well, all for different reasons that lead to the same result, essentially. So keep all that in mind. I guess moving forward with course information, we're on a par 70, so the round under 70 bonus, or the sub 70 bonus on DraftKings is very obtainable this week. Bermuda, everything. The greens, I think, are Tiff Dwarf Bermuda, which if you're trying to research the different strains, like you've got Tiff Dwarf, you got Tiff Eagle, you also have Champion Bermuda. Don't worry about that. You're probably not going to find much difference between them. Look it all up. Look all of those strains up, and if it's just Bermuda that you get to use on your researching websites or anything like that, then just look up Bermuda, because that's the only thing to look at. But yeah, that's what we have for tournament information. That's what we have for course information. Let's go ahead. Let's look at past optimal lineups. We're going to start here in 2018, because that's the first year I think DraftKings did a contest for this tournament. And you're going to find the optimal lineup use up $50,000. And it included basically everybody who finished inside the top 4. So you had a 10K golfer, a 9K golfer, and 4 7K golfers. And that's basically all we're really looking at. We're kind of looking at what difference from $50,000, since that's what we get to play with on DraftKings. And then what is the makeup? What is the salary makeup of that optimal lineup? So this is pretty standard. Usually it's like 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6. We're very close to that here. No 8s and no 6s. If we look at 2019, you can see the optimal lineup left a lot of money on the table, which I'm not a proponent for. I don't like leaving a lot of money on the table. I like to go with a more realistic optimal lineup. I just call it the sweet spot optimal. But talking about the optimal here, we have an 8K, 10K, 10, 2 7s, and a low 6K golfer. So that again left $2,300 on the table. I mean, not $2,700 on the table. Which again, I don't advise. The $1 GPP winning lineup left no money on the table. And if we were to do like a realistic optimal, it'd probably be these 5 golfers plus Charles Howell III. Yeah, let's get you to 49,900. So one place behind Davis Love III, you got Charles Howell III, and you're only leaving $100 on the table. So keep that in mind. Looking at 2020, your optimal lineup again left a bunch of money on the table. So $2,200 this time. Again, I don't advise that. I would not do that. But you had an $8,500 guy, a low 6K, a 10K golfer and above, another 7, 6, 8, so a high 6, and then another 7. So you had 2 7s, 2 6s, and an 11K golfer. Now, if you were to look at a more realistic optimal lineup, we probably replace 6,800 with 87. Yeah, this is 49,700. So you're only leaving $300 on the table, and this will beat the GPP winning lineup that you can see that's highlighted in blue. And then in 2021, last year, we used 46,900. Again, we left a bunch of money on the table, and again, I'm going to keep hammering this home. Don't look at that. We want more of a realistic optimal lineup. If you leave this much money on the table, you are inviting so many more combination of lineups that can be created. If we can filter out those lower end lineups that leave a lot of money on the table, it gives you a more limited structure on how to build lineups, and it just makes lineup building easy, and you're going to be able to figure out, not so much figure out, but you're still going to have a good chance to take down a GPP and actually get all 6 of your golfers inside the top 10. So that optimal lineup in 2021 included 7.5 Kevin Na, a 10K golfer. So there you go. All 4 years we use a 10K golfer. Another 7K, make that 2 more, and actually 3 more. So we had 5 7K golfers in the optimal lineup. All we had to do is replace one of these with someone in the 9K range, maybe even the 10K range. So what can I do this? Yeah, 49.9. So if we include 2 10K golfers, so Daniel Berger and Joaquin Niemann, and then all 7K golfers, we have our realistic optimal lineup. So keep that in mind. Again, the main thing you've been hearing me say, 10Ks, 7Ks, and don't leave a lot of money on the table. Like, it just doesn't need to happen. If you need to differentiate your lineup, it's going to be a low owned 7K or one of the random 6Ks that show up close to the top 10 or inside the top 10. So that is my strategy, or how I feel you guys should build your lineups based off of salaries. Now from here, what I'm going to do is get into the bucket system. So let me go ahead, pull that up. I'm going to open it up to everything. I was kind of playing around with it a little bit earlier. Let me hide some of this so it looks a little bit better. I do have cut made frequencies all the way to top 5 frequencies, but let me actually hide these two. Should make the screen look a little bit better. Now I have 6 stat categories within this bucket system, and each of those stat categories have buckets associated with them. This week we don't have recent form. There was only 1 tournament played within the last 7 weeks. That was last week's tournament, the Tournament of Champions. I usually don't like looking at recent form of any stat unless we have at least 3 tournaments within a 7-week stretch that were played. 2 is getting kind of close. I mean, we could kind of do that, but I still don't like that. I'd rather see 3 events played. Actually, I'd rather see 3 events played before the start of another event before I look at recent form. So we are not looking at recent form. I'm going to go ahead and just remove that stat category from our list. And now we're stuck, or we're left with last year buckets, last week buckets, course history buckets, salary buckets, and strokes gained. We've already talked about salary buckets, but just to touch up on it, let me go ahead and clear this and just look at salaries to kind of give you a different perspective of how this looks. You can see my projections here. Max, I always tell you guys, round up. I'm giving you the raw number on the screen, 2.24. If you round up, that's 3. And then for my minimum projection, 1.34, you round down, that's 1. So all of these zeros that you see here as well, you just round down. So there's a possibility none of those salaries show up inside the optimal lineup, which is true for all of these. We're kind of making our best guesses based off of strength of field, success rate, frequency rate, and also how many golfers are in that bucket this year. So I'm looking at all of those before determining what the projections are. And you can see we're projecting somewhere between 1 to 3 10K golfers finishing inside the top 10. So I told you want at least 1. You can see kind of in our optimal lineups over here, there is a minimum of at least 1 that's shown up in every optimal lineup dating back to 2018. Same goes with your 7K golfers. So if I highlight both of these, you can see the minimum for optimal lineups is 2. We've seen at least 2 7K golfers every single year inside the optimal lineup. Now I know the argument with this. Why look at salaries? It's not even a performance stat, but in a way it kind of is, right? It's much like your odds. When you're looking at your odds, it kind of provides, I don't want to call it a benchmark or anything like that, but there's a reason your 7K golfers are in the 7K price range. There's a reason why your 6K golfers are in the 6K range. Like, you're never going to see Jon Rahm in the 6K range. You're always going to see him in the 10K range. Each one of these pricing tiers represents basically risk versus reward. I shouldn't even say that. It does represent risk. And a lot of it too is you got to look at how many golfers are in each bucket versus what you've seen on average. You know, when you get to these higher buckets that have 30 plus golfers in each of the buckets, you can kind of take away it's going to be a volume driven bucket. There's 31 golfers in the 7K range. I'm only projecting somewhere between 1 to 4 inside the top 10. There's a 100% frequency rate. I think also another thing to note, like I was saying earlier, your younger golfers, your Korn Ferry graduates, and your older golfers that are trying to prove something will be found in the 7K range. You'll also find some of them in the 6K range, but your more quality golfers of those guys are in the 7K range. So it's a nice tool to use. Like DraftKings isn't stupid. They're not just randomly putting price tags. There's an algorithm that's behind their price tags. And it's probably taking into account course history, recent form, official world golf ranking. I mean, most of our models will rank these golfers very close to what their salary ranks are for that tournament. Yeah, there's some mispriced guys that we feel are mispriced and then end up being mispriced. But either way, the 7K basically represents the same thing every single year for this tournament. Same applies for the 2 6K ranges that I have. So for me, I'm looking at this as objectively as I possibly can. We've seen a bunch of 7K golfers inside the top 10. Why wouldn't I play a couple 7K golfers? So I'm just going to use the statistics to my advantage, the data to my advantage, and make sure I'm playing somewhere between 1 to 4 7K golfers in all of my lineups. That's basically how I will be doing this. And I should say this. I'm going to make sure I have... No. It'll be... So you see this 1.9 number. In 90% of my lineups, I'll have at least 2. 10%, so that 0.1, I'll only have 1. So I'll make sure I have 1 7K golfer in all of my lineups. And in 90% of those lineups, I'll also make sure there's an additional 7K golfer. And then I'll toss in 3 and 4 here and there. I'll just look at how I'm building lineups. And I might not even get to 4 because I'll be leaving too much money on the table. So it all, you know, I know it can be complicating, and it is at times whenever I'm building lineups using this type of structure, but it's fun. It's easy for me. If it's not for you, it's not for you. It's fine. But anyways, that's how I'm looking at this. And that's why I look at salaries, is because these salaries next to the guys' names aren't for no reason. You can kind of see the 8Ks and the 9Ks. We're looking somewhere between 0 to 2 for each of those. One really bad range would be your upper 6K range. And we're projecting somewhere between 0 and 1. Same goes with your lower 6K range. And you can kind of see the optimal lineup statistics here. We haven't seen more than one of these, both or of the 2 6K ranges. And the frequency rate pretty low, 25%. 1 out of 4 years we've seen a higher 6K. 2 out of 4 years we've seen a lower 6K. So play these guys at your own risk. Let's move off of salaries and get into our last year, last week buckets. So I'll just take last year first. It matters. So I have these ranked based off of their frequency numbers, as you can see here. Your number one bucket for last year would be golfers who did not play in this tournament the year before. And then your second bucket would be those that top 20'd the year before. And you can kind of see what their projections are here. I mean, we're projecting somewhere between 1 to 4 did not plays from last year. We're projecting somewhere between 1 to 3 top 20 finishes. And there's only one bucket from the last year's stat category that shows up in the optimal lineup every single year. And that is the golfers who did not play the prior year. Now, this includes golfers who do have course history that have played this tournament before, but just not last year. And it also includes rookies. I don't have kind of the breakdown of what this number implies, but just keep that in mind. And you can kind of see it's almost a pretty, I don't want to say it's an equal bucket. There's obviously one bucket you don't really want to mess around with, and that's your last year 5s, which golfers who finished somewhere between 60 and 80th, which surprisingly enough includes Cameron Smith, if I recall. I think that's correct. Cameron Smith is a last year 5, and his finish 62nd place. So if there was ever a reason to fade Cameron Smith, this would be it. It's because, I mean, it's not projected that this bucket's going to do well. It hasn't in the past, but I will say this. Cameron Smith is a golfer that can, you know, change history, or not so much change history, but change how this bucket looks. He's a good enough golfer, and I'm pretty sure all 20 strength of field points go towards this bucket. Let me double check. I do have that up here. 18 of those 20 points. I have it in this column right here. So 18 of those points of the strength of field points go towards that bucket. So anyways, if there's a reason not to play Cameron Smith, that's probably it right there. But yeah, I'm looking to play last year 2s. I'm looking to play last year 1s, at least one for each of them, and then I'll kind of sprinkle in the rest. But if you haven't figured it out yet, you can read these ranges based off of every 20 points. So 1 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80. 80 plus is usually missed cuts, withdraws, and DQs. And this is last year's finish. So it's just a flat finishing place, obviously, and they fall under those buckets. So yeah, that's what we have. Looking at last week buckets, this would be golfers who play the tournament champions. And the great thing about the Sony Open, since 2013, it has always followed the Tournament of Champions. So we have a really good data set here to look at. We're looking at golfers who top 20 last year. Remember, that tournament the week before is a limited field event, usually no more than 40 golfers in it. So we can only really look at 3 buckets no matter what. And the range is obviously 1 to 20, 20 to 40, and then did not play. So with that being said, how does it break down every single week? And I'm sure you probably heard about this on most of the podcasts. Most of the winners played the week before in some capacity. Well, I have the breakdown for you guys. Maybe not so much wins. I know a lot of people are looking at just wins and outright bets and stuff like that. But on DraftKings lineups, here's your breakdown. Looking at optimal lineups, you want a golfer who top 20 last week, and you also want a golfer who did not play. Those are the two. I hate absolutes, but as the data shows me, those are the two absolutes of finishing inside the optimal lineup. Looking at projections, you can see we're looking at somewhere between 1 to 3 top 20s from last week. We're also looking at 1 to 2 20 to 40 finishes last week. So if there's one thing to note, don't get too heavy with picking golfers from this last week 3 bucket, which again is your 20 to 40 place finish last week. And then I'm looking somewhere between 3 to 6 did not plays. You could literally create a lineup with nothing but did not plays to match the projection that I have of finishing inside the top 10. And it's quite plausible. We might have 6 golfers who did not play because we only have 21 golfers who played in last week's event in this tournament. So the odds aren't very good. 144 golfers. Yeah, there are some quality golfers in the field from that tournament. Obviously, tournament champions, you got to win a tournament in order to play in that one or to be invited to it. So yeah, we've got some good golfers in this field from that tournament. But at most, we're looking at 5 golfers that make up the top 10. And if you want to hit the optimal lineup, you want to take down a GPP, you're not taking all 6 golfers of yours from the tournament or from players who played in the tournament last week. You do want to grab some. You want to grab at least 2, it looks like, but mix and match however you feel fit to do. And then the only bucket we have to talk about, or the one that's, we have 2, course history and strokes gained. So course history bucket, how does this look dating back to 2013? Well, your number 1 bucket is that 40 to 60 range. So it really doesn't matter if you have good course history or bad course history. Usually if this is your number 1 bucket, it kind of tells you that any course history, just some course history will do the trick. So this is your average finishing position at this tournament. It could include 1 event. It could include 7 events. But either way, your course history is your course history. It's how many times, again, it's your average finishing spot. So look for golfers who has something between 40 to 60 dating back to 2013. And then from there, you want to look at 20 to 40 finishing position. 3 missed cuts would be another a good one, but that's just based off of frequency. We're not looking at projections, which, let me just back up. I'm always looking at projections. I don't care about the rank so much. It's just one way to identify golfers and put them into a group. The projections themselves are taking into, again, the success rate, the strength of field, the frequency rate, how often they've shown up inside the optimal lineup. All of those things are baked into these numbers. So with that being said, you really want to find golfers basically in these buckets. So having a top 20 finish here, the projection is low. It's between 0 to 1. And if we look at the min max for top 10 frequencies, it's 1 to 2. So we've only seen a max of 2 golfers inside the top 10 from this bucket. We've seen at least 1 in the optimal lineup. Now, the reason it's not projected at 1 or higher is because we only have 5 golfers in that bucket this week, whereas we usually see 9 golfers with this bucket attached to their name. So I'm kind of in between. I want to play it because of the optimal lineup frequency, but I also don't because, the strength of field's pretty low. There's only 5 golfers in it. I can take my chances elsewhere. And that leads me to really kind of focusing on these buckets. At it looks like you want somewhere between 2 to 4 course history 1s. You want somewhere between 1 to 3 course history 2s. And then for your did not plays, you want somewhere between 0 to 2. So again, keep all that stuff in mind. The numbers, I mean, anything can happen, but limit yourself to all of these maxes that have a 0 in the front to just 1. I highly doubt you're going to see more than 1 from these buckets finish inside the top 10. It doesn't really help you narrow down your player pools because of the 3 buckets that I'm looking at. It's 112 out of your 144 golfers, and there might be a little bit more here too, with new additions coming in. So from there, the last one to look at is your strokes gained bucket. And how I look at strokes gained is really off the tee and putting. Those are the only 2 stats that I care about. I feel like those are your easier identifiable golfers, essentially. Within each one of, okay, let me go through them. Strokes gained 1, all stats are positive. So that's off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. They're all positive. Strokes gained 2, positive off the tee, positive putting, and whatever stat in between. So if it's just negative around the green, they're also in this bucket. If it's negative approach, they're also in this bucket. But one thing to note, at least one of those stats are negative, and that is around the green or approach. Strokes gained 3, positive off the tee, negative putting. This is where you usually see Hideki Matsuyama or Colin Morikawa. Again, any stat in between. I don't care if it has negative approach or negative around the green. It could have both. It could actually have both positives, but we have negative putting, and that's where it sticks. And then you have the same thing. Strokes gained 4, negative off the tee, positive putting. Strokes gained 5 is negative off the tee, negative putting. And then 6 is no strokes gained stats recorded yet. You can see kind of the breakdown, how many golfers are in that bucket this year. Pretty even, with strokes gained 4 being our highest bucket. When we look at projections, 0.97 is so close to 1. I almost want to say you want at least 1 strokes gained 1 golfer in your lineup, but it's not really proven that out to be it. So the projection is somewhere between 0 to 2. Same thing applies for strokes gained 2. Very close to a minimum of 1, but again, it's 0 to 2. So it's pretty even. The only bucket that you probably want to stay away from are golfers who don't have any strokes gained stats. And we'll look at all of this tomorrow in the strategy video. So when we apply these buckets, I should say all this strokes gained data is 1 year's worth of data, dating all the way back to the Sony Open of last year. So if you also want to find this on whatever site you are researching, it's 1 full year's worth of strokes gained data. So you can look at the buckets that way as well. And also you're gonna, if you want the optimizer, you'll get this information. You'll see which of those golfers fall under those buckets. But that's all I have. I want to keep these previews short. I want to keep them under 30 minutes. We're at 33, which is kind of disappointing. I was hoping it would be a little bit shorter than that. But yeah, again, if you want to see this information, if you actually want access to this information, you know, ask for the optimizer. You'll get the dream sheet, which is basically this sheet right here. We kind of already went to it. You'll have grass stats on there, last week's stats, no recent form, like I said. Season-long stats, which I should just call that 1 year's worth of stats. There's nothing to compare recent form versus baseline. You'll get these extra stats, as I like to call them, and how I'm going to score the sweet spot rank. Again, this comes with the optimizer. So if you want that, be subscribed. Comment down below your favorite 10K golfer, and reach out to me at SweetSpotDFS@gmail.com, and I will send this to you. But that's all that I have for this preview. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the strategy video tomorrow. All right, bye-bye.